I wanted to talk with you and Mike Ryan about what happened to Inter Miami on Friday because
Saturday,
thank you. It's the highest paid team in the sport. It's the best regular season team there's ever been in the sport. The first time there have been two 20-goal scorers. I saw that Taylor Twellman put out that in the last 18 games that Messi has played, where he has played all 90 minutes for Inter Miami, they are 15-3. All three of the losses are against Atlanta. And they just had their season extinguished in something that has to represent one of the great postseason collapses that we've seen, losing that early when you have that payroll and that kind of star power. We discussed last week. I was saying I will not call this season a failure just because they're building something here and they've built it, and there were plenty of people who cared about what was happening against Atlanta. But there is no arguing that when you've had the regular season they have and when you have that payroll, you're expecting more, and that this ended with the greatest duck fart that you can have, losing at home in Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta, losing to a team that you're better than because soccer happens sometimes. And losing to a 40-year-old goalie on top of that. Losing to a 40-year-old goalie when you control the entire game, you're taking all the shots, you control everything, and next thing you know, you're finished because the Guzman is laughing in your face.
Brad Guzan, not Guzman, legendary international keeper for the U.S. men's national team. Yes. To dismiss him as a 40-year-old keeper is
Guzman
got unbelievable disrespect for one of the great legends.
He's 40 years old.
Yeah, he's really good, though, and he didn't have to move around that much. You can be a 40-year-old goalie.
Brad Guzman, as Dan likes to call him. Yeah, you can be. Especially at the club level, you can be a very effective goalie at 40 years old. Brad Guzman.
It does sound like a name.
American legend.
In respect to Dan. Brad Guzman sounds
we
like a name.
do one thing historically well and consistent enough, and that's produce goalies, but apparently not good enough for Dan to know your last
name.
The
40-year-old goalie cannot be knocking you out of the playoffs.
I mean, you could say nobody can be knocking you out the playoffs and speak with a good amount of conviction there. We talked about this. I will say, as much as I wanted Inter Miami to advance on this playoff, being a supporter of the club, part of me is like a legacy MLS fan is reveling in the fact that Messi couldn't get past Dax McCarty and Brad Guzman, as Dan likes to call him, because it's a kooky playoff. It takes essentially a month to play the best of three.
Ridiculous.
They got a bit unlucky with Busquets' illness. Busquets tries to give it a go a little bit and has some minutes and some playing time against Atlanta, but where Atlanta and teams had success largely against Inter Miami this season's on that counterattack, and without Busquets there to help mitigate that was difficult. But you should be beating them, and we told you that's ultimately the barometer that U.S. sports fans understand. You have a regular season, you have a postseason. The best team wins the postseason here in the United States. That's how it goes. And if they're not going to win that tournament, then they're not going to convince the casual sports fans that this is a success.
And the problem is winning the Supporter Shield has almost become a curse. In only 8 of 29 Supporter Shield winners have gone on to win the MLS Cup. But they didn't just lose in the first round. They lost to a team with a losing record. They lost to a team whose entire roster made less money than Lionel Messi did by $5 million. So Inter Miami could have gotten to the MLS Cup final and lost, and it still would have been a letdown. That's how much of a favorite they were, a betting favorite and otherwise. You just have to win it all if you're Messi after that regular season. There's no excuse, and I know Atlanta's a tough matchup for them. You know, the Atlanta has won 4 and tied 1 the last 6 meetings between these teams. There's something about Atlanta United, but there's no excuses. They had the roster built to be the best team in MLS history, which has to include a championship.
Mike, can you explain what this video was? Or Greg, maybe you can explain what happened here, because I didn't watch this game, but this video popped up of what appears to be a goal followed by Inter
the
Miami.
goalie's my age, and then he gets pushed into the net.
Inter Miami just shoving the keeper into the net, and then he can't
get out.
get out.
Yeah. And Suárez is like, get up.
Why did they do this to him?
Because Messi was trying to get the ball.
He touched Messi, and so the team's got to defend Messi.
And the goalie was trying to get the ball from Messi. Or
The goalie wanted to do some housery, which was prevent Messi from getting the ball to avoid the pomp and circumstance and quickly play a goal that no doubt gets reviewed for 30 minutes
That
afterwards.
shove
anyways.
is so funny.
good
I love
shove.
Suárez just like, come on, get up, get out of the net. What are you doing?
Wait a
all-star
minute.
shove.
The thing that is funniest is indisputably our man Guzman falling into the net there and just being like he's kind of flopping, but he also can't get out of the net.
It isn't every day that Messi scores with a header.
That was the
I
craziest
know.
part about that.
There was
incredible.
one controversial goal that I didn't really have an issue with it, that Atlanta scored a goal while an Inter Miami player was writhing in pain inside their own box earlier.
yes.
That's a dumb discussion. You play to the whistle. I understand. There's a sportsmanship where you'll see like a player go down and the team like kicks it out of bounds.
Not in the box though.
They were on the attack there. I had no issue with it. They got MLS. It's hard to win knockout tournaments, especially in soccer, because so many of the variables can change, and that's embarrassing for Inter Miami. Ultimately, I think it took David Beckham a while to win that one too. There's more trophies for them to win now that Messi is in there, and they've certainly won enough for, at least in the eyes of FIFA, for them to get the real prize out of this season, which was earned placement in next year's Club World Cup, where FIFA has already announced Inter Miami will be opening up that tournament. It's a World Cup, but just for club teams. So you get the best of Europe, best of Middle East, best of Asia, best of Latin America, and best here of North America. They're going to be opening that tournament at Hard Rock Stadium. So I guess using that as a qualifier, they're in the tournament. Then I guess it was a good season, but it was all kind of weird how they engineered that. I guess I'm the president of everybody. You're in. Okay.
Well, but you say you guys are making it very all or nothing, okay? You're saying either you win a championship or there isn't something that feels...
I'm not saying that. But that's Joe Sports Fan here in the United States. That's what Billy would say. That's what Stugotz would say, and they don't really care. They're just getting a reaction. But you have to win that. That's it. He joined MLS. He hasn't won MLS.
Yes.
He's won a Supporter Shield and he's won a Leagues Cup. Those are different. He's got to get judged on by most people what he does in that season's tournament.
Right, and the fact is, Inter Miami only has them for 2 full seasons, right? And next year, the odds are they're not going to win the Supporters' Shield again. Messi's going to be a year older. The league will have had an entire cycle of Messi to get used to him and defending him, and I just think this was the year. After the regular season they had, this was his year.
He's shown that he's pretty good though, Greg. Like I think he's going to be good next year. I understand. Like they're going to add players to that roster.
Right.
They're going to still have deeper coffers.
No,
they're
I
just
get
going
it.
to
Yeah, there was a
have more
Neymar.
lottery
Right.
shots.
It's not that you guys are just making it all or nothing or putting the appraisal where sports fans do on if you have the best regular season, you have to win the championship. The thing that's deflating about it is it wasn't even any kind of run. You're losing to a team with a worse record, and it's just sort of soccer happening to you in a small sample size in a weird playoff format that has you playing 3 games in a month.
Well, better now than at the end. If they're not going to win, let's save his legs, not have him go through that many games. It stinks, but you'll have to prioritize. This year, they didn't make the regular season the priority. They had to suffer through a lot of injuries, and they ended up still setting a record for the regular season. They tried to do things where they prioritize the CONCACAF Champions League or Champions Cup, whatever it's called now. That didn't turn out well. They tried to make a run, even though Messi was hurt in Leagues Cup, fell short. They did win one trophy historically. Unless you're the likes of Real Madrid, where there's some instances in which you win a trophy and not everybody's happy with it, winning a trophy in a season when you have the ability to win 3 or more, that's not a bad season.
Mike Ryan has to go to help Chris Whittingham with the podcast that's very popular, soccer podcast, Goalless, that Meadowlark is making along with Chris Whittingham. But before you go, let's send him off as punctuation video. Do you have the ability to show us Guzman in the net very slowly, slow motion,
Brad
trying to
Guzan.
get out of the net after he gets pushed in here? He's furious. He's bald. He looks like Pinhead from the horror movies.
Cartoon sound effects would be so good behind
Okay,
this.
but let's do this in slow motion first because this is funny and it would happen to any of us. It's how I try to get out of the ball pit when I have fallen into the ball pit at my local Chuck E. Cheese's.
When yesterday,
last month,
week?
Take
yes,
that
last
picture.
month. Yes, it's in the ball pit. Very slow motion. So, you know what? He did better. He did better than most under the circumstances, as if he has some experience propelling himself out of the awkwardness of a net.
I love how protected Messi is. Number 8 on Inter Miami shoves him into the net, and no one's
correct.
upset about it because, hey, you bumped
well,
Messi.
Guzman was certainly upset
Right.
about
He looks
it.
like a marionette trying to get out of the net. Like people are,